6-year-old Kai, in a three-piece suit, marched across the Seoul hotel lobby like he owned it. His target? The dangerous-looking man who'd been staring at his mother for the past 2 minutes. Kai Timfrey stopped 3 feet away, adjusted his tiny burgundy tie, and looked up at the stranger with a smirk that didn't belong on a child's face. "Excuse me, sir," he said, his voice sharp and confident. "Why are you staring at my mother as if you want to eat her for breakfast?" Han Min-jae, billionaire mafia boss and the most feared man in Seoul, stared down at the miniature version of himself and felt his world tilt, because those were his eyes looking back at him, his jawline, his stance. And judging by the boy's age, this was impossible. Roberta Timfrey had vanished 7 years ago without a word. Now she was here, with a son who looked exactly like him, a son she'd clearly never told him about. "I asked you a question," Kai said, crossing his arms. "It's rude to stare, you know." Min-jae's lips curved into something cold and deadly. "Is it?" "Very," Kai replied, unflinching. "So either state your business or move along. My mother and I have an important meeting." 7 years of rage, confusion, and unanswered questions crystallized into one thought. What the hell happened? If you're wondering how a forbidden romance, a midnight escape, and a pregnancy led to this moment where a tiny suited CEO just confronted Seoul's most dangerous man, hit that subscribe button because this story is about to take you on a wild ride. 7 years earlier, Roberta Timfrey was 20 years old and absolutely not prepared for any of this. She'd just finished her 2nd year of law school when her father, Kelly Timfrey, got the call that changed their lives. The Han family wanted him, not just as their attorney, but as their personal legal counsel, the kind of position that came with a salary that had too many zeros and responsibilities that came with unspoken rules. Kelly was one of the best corporate attorneys in international law, but more than that, he was honest, brutally, stupidly honest in a world where people lied as easily as they breathed. And the Hans, with their empire built on secrets, power, and carefully orchestrated alliances, valued that honesty like gold. "This is it, Roberta," her father had said, packing his bags for Seoul. "This is the break our family needs." "Our family?" Roberta had raised an eyebrow. "I'm still in school, Dad." "You're coming with me. Seoul has excellent international universities with strong law programs. You can transfer your credits and continue your studies there while working as my assistant. You'll learn how real law works, not just the theoretical nonsense they teach in classrooms." So Roberta found herself in Seoul, living in a luxury apartment paid for by the Hans, attending family dinners at their massive estate, and trying very hard not to stare at the artwork that probably cost more than her entire education. The Han family wasn't just wealthy, they were royalty, old money mixed with new power. They owned half of Seoul's real estate, had politicians in their pocket, and everyone whispered about their other business interests that no one dared investigate too closely. And right in the center of it all was Han Min-jae, 24 years old, devastatingly handsome, and being groomed to inherit an empire that operated in both boardrooms and shadows. He wore power like other men wore cologne, spoke 4 languages fluently, and had a smile that could either charm you or warn you depending on his mood. Roberta knew better than to stare. She really did. Her father had warned her 100 times. "These people are kind to us because we're useful. Don't forget that. Don't get comfortable, and for the love of God, don't get involved." But Min-jae made it difficult. He didn't look at her like she was useful. He looked at her like she was fascinating. It started, innocently enough, conversations at dinner parties, debates about international law and ethics that stretched into the early morning hours. He challenged her, made her laugh, looked at her like she was the only person in the room worth talking to. He'd seek her out at family gatherings, pull her into conversations, challenge her opinions like he actually cared what she thought. He didn't treat her like Kelly Timfrey's daughter or some American girl tagging along. He treated her like an equal, and that was dangerous. "You don't agree with me," Min-jae said one night after a particularly tense family dinner. They were alone on the estate's terrace, the Seoul skyline glittering below them. "I didn't say that," Roberta replied carefully. "You didn't have to. Your face said it for you." He handed her a glass of wine. "Go ahead, tell me why I'm wrong." "Your family wants to acquire the Jong Company through what's technically legal but morally questionable pressure tactics. I think it's short-sighted." "Short-sighted?" Min-jae's eyebrow lifted. They're bleeding money. We're offering them a lifeline. You're offering them a leash. There's a difference. Instead of getting angry, Min-jae laughed. Actually laughed. You're fearless. I like that. I'm honest. My father taught me that. Honesty is rare in my world. He stepped closer. Maybe that's why I can't stop thinking about you. Roberta's heart did something stupid and complicated. You shouldn't say things like that. Why not? Because I work for your family, because my father would kill me, because this is a terrible idea. I know. Min-jae's smile turned wicked. That's what makes it interesting. He kissed her, and Roberta, who'd spent her entire life being the responsible one, the good daughter, the smart girl who made safe choices, kissed him back. That's how it started. Stolen moments in empty hallways, late-night phone calls that stretched until sunrise, Min-jae sneaking away from family, obligations to meet her in quiet corners of the estate, Roberta lying to her parents about working late when she was really in Min-jae's car, parked somewhere the family's security couldn't find them. For 6 months, they lived in their own secret universe where his last name didn't matter and her father's warnings didn't exist. Then Roberta missed her period. She took the test in a hotel bathroom, hands shaking so violently she nearly dropped it. When those 2 lines appeared, her whole world imploded. 20 years old, pregnant, by the heir to a family that didn't believe in love, only alliances. A family whose solution to problems often involved people quietly disappearing. She told Min-jae the next night in his car, "I'm pregnant." The silence that followed felt like drowning. Min-jae's hands gripped the steering wheel. He stared straight ahead. "Are you sure?" "Yes." "How far along?" "About 6 weeks." More silence. Then, so quietly she almost didn't hear it. "What do wanna do?" Roberta's heart shattered. "Not we'll figure this out. Not I love you and we'll handle this together. Just what do you want to do? Like this was a problem to be solved." "I don't know," she whispered. Min-jae finally looked at her. His face was unreadable. The warm man she loved replaced by the Han heir he was trained to be. "My family can't know about this." "I know. If they find out you're pregnant with their heir, they'll—" He stopped, but Roberta heard the unspoken words. "They'll take the baby. Or worse, they'll eliminate the problem entirely." "Give me a week," Min-jae said. "I'll figure something out, I promise." He dropped her off and drove away. That was the last real conversation they ever had. Because 3 days later, Roberta's mother walked into her bedroom and sat on the edge of her bed with the kind of calm that preceded hurricanes. "You're pregnant." It wasn't a question. Roberta's tears answered anyway. Her mother's expression cycled, through shock, disappointment, fear, and finally cold calculation. "Does he know?" "Yes." "What did he say?" "That his family can't find out." Her mother's jaw tightened in a way that meant decisions were being made. "Get dressed. Your father needs to know. Now." The conversation that followed was the worst 2 hours of Roberta's life. Her father paced his office like a trapped animal, his face shifting between rage and pure terror. "Do you understand what you've done?" He wasn't yelling. Somehow that made it worse. "These people don't do scandals, Roberta. They eliminate them." "Dad, Min-jae wouldn't—" "Min-jae is a Han first and your lover second. When that family discovers you're carrying their grandchild, one of 2 things happens. Either they take that baby and erase you from existence, or they decide an illegitimate heir is a liability and erase both of you." Her mother was already pulling suitcases from the closet. "We leave tonight." "What? No, we can't just—" "We can and we will." Her father's voice shook. "I won't risk your life betting that boy loves you more than his empire. We disappear, I resign, we vanish before they have time to decide what to do with you." But Min-jae said he'd figure something out. "In a week," her father shouted. "You think we have a week? The moment someone in that family notices, we're done. We leave now." They packed in 2 hours. Her father sent a brief resignation email with 0 explanation. No goodbye, no forwarding address. Just gone. They flew to London first, then New York, constantly moving, changing hotels, paying cash, until they were certain no one was following. By the time they settled in Chicago 3 months later, Roberta was visibly pregnant and Han Min-jae had no idea where she was. She gave birth to Kai in a small hospital room with her mother holding her hand and her father pacing the hallway like a sentry. When the nurse placed that tiny baby in her arms, Roberta made a promise. This child would have everything, every opportunity, every advantage, and she would never let the Han family destroy him. So she did what Timfries do. She fought, went back to law school with a newborn strapped to her chest in a baby carrier, taking notes with one hand while bottle feeding with the other, worked 3 jobs, studied until 3 a.m., clawed her way through her degree one exhausted day at a time, passed the bar exam on her first try with Kai sitting in a playpen in the corner of the testing center's childcare room. Then she started climbing, built a reputation in corporate law that had nothing to do with her father and everything to do with being brilliant, relentless, and absolutely unwilling to lose. By the time Kai was 6, Roberta Timfrey was a name that meant something. She closed million-dollar deals, wore designer suits, and raised a son who somehow turned out exactly like his father without ever meeting him. And that's where things got hilarious and terrifying in equal measure, because Kai wasn't a normal kid. At 18 months, he'd organized his toys by color and size. At 3, he'd corrected his preschool teacher's math. At 4, he'd read his first chapter book and asked why the protagonist made such poor financial decisions. By 6, Kai Timfrey wore 3-piece suits to kindergarten, read the Wall Street Journal at breakfast, and negotiated everything like it was a corporate merger. "Mom, if I eat my vegetables without complaint and complete my homework early, can we extend bedtime by 30 minutes? "Kai, you're 6. You don't negotiate bedtime." "Everything's negotiable, Mom. You taught me that in the Morrison case." "That was a multi-million-dollar contract." "Principal's scale." He adjusted his tiny tie. "So do we have a deal?" Roberta didn't know whether to laugh or schedule a psychological evaluation. The kid was a menace, a brilliant, hilarious, oddly mature menace. He pranked her constantly, switched her regular, coffee to decaf, and watched her wonder why she was tired all morning. Rearranged her case files alphabetically by client name instead of date, which technically was more organized but completely disrupted her system. Once convinced his kindergarten teacher he needed to attend a business meeting instead of nap time because he was consulting on a very important merger. "Kai, you're 6, Roberta had said when she got called to the school. "What merger?" "Tommy wanted Sarah's blocks. Sarah wanted Tommy's trucks. I facilitated an exchange that benefited both parties." He'd said this in complete seriousness. "That's literally a merger, Mom." But the most unsettling part? Kai knew things, like new things he shouldn't be able to know. Roberta would think about ordering Thai food for dinner, and before she could mention it, Kai would say, "Can we get pad Thai tonight? I've been craving it." She'd consider canceling a meeting, and Kai would walk in with, "You're going to reschedule. The Henderson call, aren't you?" "How did you always tap your pen 3 times when you're about to cancel something. You've done it twice in the last 5 minutes." The child was 6 years old and reading her like a legal brief. "Mom, you're thinking about cutting your hair." "I haven't said anything about cutting my hair." "You touched your ends 4 times during breakfast and sighed. You do that when you're annoyed with your hair. You'll book an appointment by Thursday." She booked the appointment on Wednesday. Kai had smiled like he'd won a case. It got worse when men tried to approach Roberta. Kai transformed into a tiny, suited bodyguard with the protective instincts of a mafia enforcer. A colleague once made the mistake of complimenting Roberta's dress a bit too enthusiastically at a firm party. Kai, wearing a miniature tuxedo because of course he was, had materialized at the man's elbow. "That's my mother you're staring at." The man had laughed nervously. "Just being friendly, little guy." "Friendly is a smile and a greeting. You've been staring for 45 seconds. That's not friendly, that's creepy." Kai had crossed his arms. "I suggest you redirect your attention elsewhere." The man had actually backed away. Roberta had pulled Kai aside. "Sweetheart, you can't threaten my colleagues." "I didn't threaten him. I made a suggestion based on observational data." "You're 6. Age doesn't invalidate pattern recognition, Mom." Roberta had looked at her mother in desperation during one visit. "Why is he like this? How did I end up with a 6-year-old who acts like a Fortune 500 CEO? Her mother had just smiled sadly, the way she always did when Kai did something particularly Han-like. "He's his father's son, baby. You can't fight genetics." And Roberta had spent 6 years successfully avoiding anything that might remind her of those genetics. She turned down cases involving Korean companies, avoided Korean restaurants, pretended an entire country didn't exist. Then the Huang deal came along. It was massive, a billion-dollar merger between an American tech company and a Korean conglomerate. The kind of deal that would cement her reputation as one of the best merger and acquisition attorneys in the country. The kind she couldn't turn down without raising serious questions. Her boss had been ecstatic. "Roberta, this is career-defining. You'll need to fly to Seoul for the signing ceremony and the gala." Every drop of blood had drained from Roberta's face. "Seoul? Just for 3 days. Sign the contracts, schmooze at the party? Done. You've earned this." She'd spent 72 hours trying to find a way out, invented excuses, considered faking illness, even briefly contemplated quitting, but there was no escape. This was her deal, her name on the contract, her signature required. So she booked the flights, packed her bags, and prayed to every deity she could name that Seoul was big enough that she'd never run into him. Kai naturally had insisted on coming. "Mom, I'm your lucky charm. You said so yourself after the Davidson merger." "Sweetheart, this is a business trip to Korea. You'll be bored." Kai had given her the look, the one that said he saw right through her. "You're nervous about going to Seoul. You've checked the itinerary 6 times, which you only do when you're anxious. I should come with you." "Kai? Plus, I've always wanted to visit Seoul. Did you know it has the most advanced public transportation system in Asia and the highest number of coffee shops per capita in the world?" How did her 6-year-old know that? "I've been reading about it," Kai had said, answering her unspoken question because of course he had. "It's important to understand the cultural and economic context of business dealings. You taught me that." She'd taught him way too much, so Kai had come with her, wearing his favorite navy suit and carrying a small briefcase that contained exactly 3 items: a juice box, his tablet loaded with business podcasts, and a leather notebook where he wrote what he called business observations. They'd landed in Seoul that morning. The city was exactly as beautiful and overwhelming as Roberta remembered. She'd checked them into the luxury hotel where the signing ceremony would take place tomorrow, her hands shaking the entire time. Kai had noticed, obviously. "Your cortisol levels are elevated. You want to talk about it?" "Cortisol levels? You're 6. I listen to your medical podcast during car rides, so what's wrong?" "Nothing, baby. Just tired from the flight." Kai had given her that look again, but mercifully dropped it. Roberta had spent the afternoon on edge, scanning every face in every crowd. But Seoul was enormous, over 10 million people. The chances of running into one specific person were astronomically low. Besides, Min-jae was probably running his empire from some glass tower surrounded by security, completely unreachable. Why would he be in a hotel lobby in the middle of the day? Except he was. Roberta was checking her phone, confirming tomorrow's schedule with her assistant back in Chicago, when she felt it, that prickling awareness of being watched. She'd looked up and her heart had stopped. Han Min-jae stood across the hotel lobby, frozen mid-step, staring at her like he'd seen a ghost rise from the dead. He looked different, older, harder, more handsome. The warmth she remembered had been carved away and replaced with something cold and dangerous. His suit, expensively breathtaking. His presence dominated the entire space without him saying a word. He looked like exactly what he was, the most powerful and dangerous man in Seoul, and he was staring at her with an intensity that made her want to run. Roberta's hands had started trembling. She'd forced herself to look back at her phone, pretending she hadn't seen him, praying he wouldn't approach, praying Kai wouldn't notice. But Kai noticed everything. "Mom," he'd whispered, tugging her sleeve, "that man is staring at you." "Ignore him, baby." "He's been staring for over 2 minutes. That's statistically unusual and potentially threatening." "Kai, please just—" But her son was already moving. Roberta's heart had plummeted into her stomach as she watched Kai set down his juice box, adjust his burgundy tie with the precision of a man heading into a board meeting, and march straight across the marble lobby toward Han Min-jae, her 6-year-old son, walking toward his father, the father he didn't know existed, the man she'd spent 7 years hiding him from. This was it, the moment she'd been dreading, the nightmare scenario, and there was nothing she could do but watch as Kai stopped exactly 3 feet from Min-jae, crossed his arms, and looked up with a gentleman's smirk that was pure Han genetics. Min-jae stared down at the child, and Roberta saw the exact moment recognition hit. His eyes widened, his face went pale, his expression shifted from shock to confusion to something that looked like devastation. Because Kai didn't just look like him. Kai was him, a perfect miniature copy, from the sharp jawline to the calculating eyes to the way he stood like he owned the ground beneath his feet. And then Kai spoke, his voice clear and confident and absolutely fearless. "Excuse me, sir, why are you staring at my mother as if you want to eat her for breakfast?" Want to see what happens when the most dangerous man in Seoul realizes he's been a father for 6 years? Drop a like and keep watching because this reunion is about to get messy. The lobby seemed to hold its breath. Min-jae's mouth opened, closed, opened again. For the first time in his life, the man who commanded empires had no words. Kai waited exactly 3 seconds, then continued. "It's rude to stare. Didn't anyone teach you manners?" Something flickered in Min-jae's eyes. Amusement, shock, apologize. "I thought I recognized someone." "You thought wrong." Kai's tone was dismissive, professional. "Now if you'll excuse me, my mother and I have an important meeting to prepare for." He'd started to turn away, but Min-jae's voice stopped him. "What's your name?" Kai had turned back, eyebrow raised in a gesture so identical to Min-jae's that Roberta wanted to cry. "Why do you want to know?" "Curiosity." Curiosity without context is suspicious. Kai had tilted his head. "Are you trying to gather intelligence on my mother for competitive business reasons? Because I should warn you, she's the best merger and acquisition attorney in Chicago. You won't win." A smile had ghosted across Min-jae's face. "Is she now?" "Yes, she closed the Davidson merger in 3 weeks when everyone said it would take 3 months. She's brilliant." The pride in Kai's voice was unmistakable. "So whatever company you represent, you should probably reconsider any aggressive strategies. I'll keep that in mind." Min-jae had crouched down, bringing himself to eye level with Kai. "You're very protective of your mother." "Someone has to be." Kai's eyes had narrowed. "She works too hard and doesn't eat enough, and men keep staring at her like you're doing right now." "Kai!" Roberta had finally found her voice and rushed over, grabbing her son's hand. "I'm so sorry, he's very—" She'd trailed off as her eyes met Min-jae's. 7 years of silence crashed between them. "Roberta!" His voice was rough, raw, like saying her name hurt. "Min-jae." She'd forced herself to sound casual, professional, like running into her secret baby daddy in Seoul was totally normal. "Small world. Small world," he'd repeated, his eyes dropping to Kai. "Is this your son?" "Yes." The word came out too fast, too defensive. "He's adorable. How old is he?" Roberta's throat had closed. 6. She'd watched Min-jae do the math, watched the realization hit, watched 7 years of questions crystallize into understanding. 6, Min-jae had repeated softly. "And his father?" "Not in the picture." "By choice?" "By necessity." Kai had been watching this exchange with the intensity of a lawyer observing a deposition. "Do you two know each other?" "We used to work together," Roberta had said quickly. "A long time ago." Kai hadn't looked convinced. "You're both exhibiting elevated stress responses, dilated pupils, increased respiratory rate, micro-expressions indicating anxiety. What aren't you telling me?" Min-jae had actually laughed, a real laugh that sounded shocked out of him. "Does he always talk like this?" "Unfortunately, yes." "I'm standing right here," Kai had pointed out, "and I asked a question." Roberta had squeezed his hand. "Kai, why don't you go get your tablet from the seating area? I need to speak with Mr. Han for a moment." "Mr. Han?" Kai's eyes widened slightly. "As in Han Enterprises, the conglomerate that owns 40% of Seoul's commercial real estate?" "You know about Han Enterprises?" Min-jae asked. "I read the Financial Times, obviously." "Obviously," Min-jae murmured, looking at Kai like he was seeing a miracle. "You're 6 years old and you read the Financial Times." "Age is irrelevant to intellectual curiosity," Kai said, pulling out his phone, which Roberta had given him for emergencies and which he used to research stock markets. "Han Enterprises stock is up 7% this quarter. You're doing well, though I have notes on your expansion strategy if you're interested." "Kai!" Roberta had wanted to sink into the floor. "Tablet, now, please." Her son had given her a look that clearly said this conversation isn't over, but he'd walked away, shoes clicking on marble with unsettling maturity. The moment he was out of earshot, Min-jae turned to her with eyes that burned. "That's my son." It wasn't a question. Roberta had lifted her chin. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't." His voice had dropped to something dangerous. "Don't you dare lie to me. I've spent 7 years looking for you. 7 years wondering why you vanished, why your father resigned without explanation, why you disappeared like you never existed." He'd stepped closer. "And now I find you here with a 6-year-old boy who looks exactly like me, acts exactly like me, and has my eyes. So don't stand here and pretend you don't know what I'm talking about." Roberta's hands had clenched into fists. "You need to leave, now." "Not until you tell me the truth. Is he mine?" "That's none of your business." "The hell it's not." Min-jae's control had cracked. "If that's my son, I have a right to know." "Rights?" Roberta laughed bitterly. "You want to talk about rights? You told me your family couldn't know I was pregnant. You said you needed a week to figure something out. You made it very clear that I was a problem to be solved." "That's not—" "My father said your family would take my baby or kill us both, so we left. We disappeared to protect him." Her voice had shaken. "I've spent 7 years making sure your family never found us, making sure Kai was safe. So no, Min-jae, you don't get to show up now and demand rights." Min-jae had looked like she'd stabbed him. "You think I would have let my family hurt you, hurt our child?" "I don't know. I was 20 years old and terrified. Your exact words were, 'My family can't know about this.' What was I supposed to think?" "That I loved you," Min-jae had shouted, then quieter, broken. "That I loved you and I would have protected you, both of you. I spent the week planning how to tell my family, how to make them accept you. I was going to propose, Roberta. I had the ring." Roberta's world had tilted. "What?" "I bought a ring. I was going to ask you to marry me and present it to my family as fait accompli. Love or not, you were brilliant, educated, perfect. I was going to make them see that." His voice cracked. "And then you were gone. Your father resigned. You vanished. I thought you used me. I thought you never loved me at all. I left to protect our son. Our son who I didn't know existed until 3 minutes ago." They'd been shouting now, drawing stares from other hotel guests. Kai's voice had cut through like a knife. "Are you two finished? Because you're making a scene and it's embarrassing." He'd walked back over, holding his tablet and looking at them with the judgmental expression of a disappointed CEO. "Let me see if I have this correct," Kai said, crossing his arms. "You two had a romantic relationship 7 years ago. Mom got pregnant. Her family panicked and they fled the country. You," he'd pointed at Min-jae, "spent 7 years looking for her. She spent 7 years hiding from you, and neither of you thought to communicate like rational adults." Both Roberta and Min-jae had stared at him. "How did you—" Roberta had started. "Please, I'm 6, not stupid." Kai had gestured between them. "The timeline adds up. You both have the same mannerisms. He has my jawline. Plus, you've been exhibiting classic signs of unresolved romantic tension since the moment you saw each other." He'd looked at Min-jae. "And you're clearly my biological father based on the genetic similarities and the timeline of Mom's departure from Seoul. If you want to see how a 6-year-old genius navigates his parents' drama while probably being smarter than both of them combined, make sure you're subscribed because this is about to get even more chaotic." Min-jae had looked at Roberta. "Is he always like this?" "Every single day," Roberta said, rubbing her temples. "I don't know where he came from." "I came from you two," Kai said helpfully. "Biologically speaking, though my advanced cognitive development is probably due to a combination of genetics and early childhood educational exposure." Min-jae had crouched down again, looking at Kai with an expression Roberta couldn't quite read. "You're remarkable." "No." Kai hadn't said it arrogantly, just factually. "The question is, what happens now?" "That's a good question," Min-jae said, looking at Roberta. "What does happen now?" "Nothing," Roberta said firmly. "We're here for 3 days for a business deal, then we're going home. This changes nothing." "The hell it doesn't." Min-jae had stood. "That's my son, who you didn't know about until 10 minutes ago. Because you didn't tell me. Because your family would have. My family, Min-jae had interrupted coldly, is me now. My father died 3 years ago. I run the empire, which means I make the rules, and the rule is that my son doesn't grow up without me. Roberta's blood had run cold. Are you threatening me? I'm stating facts. Min-jae's eyes had been hard. You can work with me, or I can make this very difficult. Your choice. Kai had sighed loudly. This is exactly why I won't date. Adults are terrible at conflict resolution. He'd looked at Min-jae. Let me be clear. You don't get to threaten my mother. I don't care if you're my biological father or the Emperor of Korea. She raised me alone for 6 years. She worked 3 jobs to put herself through law school while taking care of me. She's the strongest person I know. So if you think you're going to intimidate her, you're mistaken. Min-jae blinked. Did you just defend your mother from me? Yes. What are you going to do about it? A slow smile spread across Min-jae's face. You really are my son. Biologically, yes. Legally and emotionally, I'm a Timfree. Kai said, straightening his tie. Now can we discuss this like civilized people? Preferably somewhere private where you're not creating a spectacle? Roberta had wanted to hug him and ground him simultaneously. Min-jae gestured toward the hotel's restaurant. Shall we? That's how Roberta found herself sitting in a private dining room with her ex-lover and their genius 6-year-old son who was currently reading the wine list and making suggestions. The 2015 Bordeaux is overpriced, Kai had said. You could get comparable quality for 60% of the cost. You're 6, Roberta reminded him. You shouldn't know about wine. I read. He'd set down the menu. So, let's establish some ground rules for this conversation. Min-jae had looked amused. Ground rules? Yes. First, no yelling. It's unproductive. Second, no threats. Mom doesn't respond well to intimidation, and I won't allow it. Third, all cards on the table. No more secrets. Kai said, folding his hands on the table like a tiny mediator. Agreed? Roberta and Min-jae had exchanged glances. Agreed, Min-jae said. Fine, Roberta muttered. Excellent. Kai pulled out a notebook. Now, Dad, can I call you Dad? Or should I use Mr. Han? What's the protocol here? Min-jae's eyes had gotten suspiciously bright. You can call me whatever you want. Dad seems premature given that we've known each other for 15 minutes, but Mr. Han is too formal for family. How about Min-jae until we establish a stronger relationship? That works. Perfect. Kai had written something down. Min-jae, what exactly are your intentions regarding me and my mother? Roberta had choked on her water. Min-jae leaned back, studying his son with undisguised fascination. I want to be in your life, both of your lives. I want to get to know you, make up for the 6 years I missed. That's reasonable. However, Mom and I live in Chicago. You live in Seoul. The logistics are complicated. I have a private jet. Logistics aren't a problem. Fair point. Kai made another note. What about your family? You mentioned your father is deceased. What about the rest of the Hans? Will they accept me? Min-jae's expression had hardened. As I said, I run the family now. They'll accept you because I say they will. That's not an answer. That's a power play. Kai, Roberta warned. It's fine, Min-jae had said. He's right. The truth is, my family will have opinions, strong ones, but you're my son. You're a Han by blood. That makes you an heir. They can't change that. An heir to what exactly? Kai asked. Because I've read about Han Enterprises, and while the public holdings are impressive, there are rumors about other interests, less legal ones. Roberta had gone pale. Kai, you can't just... It's a valid question, Kai interrupted. If I'm going to be associated with the Han family, I need to understand what that entails. I'm not interested in a criminal empire. Min-jae had actually smiled. You really are fearless. I'm practical. There's a difference. Fair enough. Min-jae had leaned forward. Yes, my family has interests in areas that exist in legal gray zones. No, I won't involve you in any of that. And yes, if you want nothing to do with that side of the business, I'll respect that. Can I get that in writing? Min-jae had laughed. Actually laughed. You're 6 years old and you want a written contract? I want assurances. You seem like a reasonable person, but I don't know you yet. No offense. None taken. You're smart to protect yourself. Min-jae had pulled out his phone. I'll have my lawyer draft something. Wait, seriously? Roberta had stared at him. He asked, it's reasonable. Why wouldn't I? Because he's 6. And clearly more mature than most adults I negotiate with. Min-jae said, typing something. There, my lawyer will have a draft by tomorrow outlining the terms of my relationship with Kai, including guarantees regarding legal business practices and his autonomy to choose his own path. Kai had nodded approvingly. I like you, you're efficient. Thanks, I like you too, you're terrifying. I get that a lot. Roberta looked between her son and his father, watching them bond over contracts and legal negotiations, and wondered what alternate universe she'd fallen into. The waiter had arrived with their food, and Kai had immediately critiqued the presentation. The garnish is unnecessary. It adds no nutritional value and creates waste. Min-jae had grinned. I say that exact thing every time they serve me here. Because it's true, aesthetic presentation is important, but sustainability matters more. Exactly. They'd started discussing environmental impact in the food service industry, while Roberta sat there questioning every life choice that led to this moment. After dinner, Kai had declared himself tired, the only childlike thing he'd done all evening, and Roberta had taken him back to their hotel room, but not before Kai had shaken Min-jae's hand. Thank you for dinner and the thoughtful conversation. I look forward to continuing our discussion tomorrow. Me too, Min-jae had said softly, then to Roberta, can we talk, alone? She'd wanted to say no, wanted to grab Kai and run again, but her son had looked at her with those knowing eyes and said, you should talk to him, Mom. You both have things to say. So she'd tucked Kai into bed, waited until he was asleep, and met Min-jae in the hotel bar. They'd sat in silence for a full minute before Min-jae spoke. I'm sorry. Roberta looked up, startled. I'm sorry that I made you feel like you had to run. Sorry that my family scared you so badly you thought disappearing was the only option. Sorry that you spent 7 years raising our son alone. His voice had cracked. I'm sorry I wasn't there. You didn't know where we were, Roberta whispered. I should have. I should have found you, should have tried harder. Your family. My father was a controlling bastard who built an empire on fear. I know that. I grew up in it. But I also thought I could protect you from it. I was arrogant and naive. Min-jae had reached across the table, stopping just short of touching her hand. When you told me you were pregnant, I should have acted immediately instead of asking for a week. Roberta, I would have burned the whole empire down before I let anyone hurt you. Tears had slipped down her cheeks. I was so scared. My dad said they'd take the baby or kill us. I couldn't risk it. I know, and I understand why you ran. I hate it, but I understand it. He'd finally touched her hand. But he's here now. Kai is here, and he's perfect. He's brilliant and funny and terrifying and perfect. You did that. You raised him to be that. He's just like you, Roberta said through tears. It's the most frustrating thing in the world. He knows what I'm thinking before I do. He negotiates everything. He wears suits to kindergarten. Suits to kindergarten? Min-jae had grinned. Really? He insists, says Casual Friday doesn't exist in his schedule. Min-jae had laughed, and for a moment they were just two people who used to love each other, talking about their ridiculous son. What happens now? Roberta asked. That depends. What do you want? I want Kai to be safe, to be happy, to have choices. Done. What else? I don't want him dragged into family politics or dangerous business. Already agreed. What else? Roberta had looked at him, really looked at him. What do you want? Honestly, Min-jae said, leaning back. I want the 7 years I missed. I want to know everything about him. His first words, his first steps, every moment I wasn't there for. His eyes had met hers. And I want to know if there's any chance for us. Her heart had stuttered. Min-jae. I know it's complicated. We have years of hurt and misunderstanding between us. But Roberta, I never stopped looking for you. He leaned forward. For 7 years I searched. Private investigators, digital forensics, every resource I had. But your father was thorough. You all vanished completely. Then how? I got smart about it. Started tracking major international deals between American firms and Korean companies. I knew you'd finish law school. Knew you were too brilliant not to practice. So I waited. His voice was quiet. 6 months ago, the Huang merger crossed my desk. $1 billion deal, American legal team from Chicago. I pulled the filing documents and there you were. Third name on the attorney list. Roberta Timfrey, lead M&A attorney. Roberta's breath caught. I cleared my entire schedule. Didn't care about meetings, business, anything. I got to this hotel 3 hours before your check-in time and waited in that lobby like a fool. His eyes met hers. And then I saw you, 7 years older, more beautiful, so confident, and beside you? His voice cracked. A little boy in a suit who looked exactly like me. Tears slipped down Roberta's cheeks. So now that I've found you both, I just need to know if there's a chance for us. I don't know, she'd whispered honestly. I don't know if we can go back. Please. The word came out raw. Please don't do this to me. Do what? Treat me like I'm nothing to you, like we were nothing. His voice shook despite his effort to control it. Roberta, I just found you after 7 years. 7 years of wondering if you were safe, if you thought about me, if you hated me, and in one moment I found out I have a son I missed everything for. His first steps, his first words, 6 years of his life just gone. He looked down at his hands, jaw tight. And now you're trying to tell me the best I can hope for is scheduled visits? That I'm just some obligation you have to manage? He looked back up at her, eyes bright but no tears falling. I haven't slept properly in 7 years, Roberta. Every deal I closed, every success, it all felt empty because you weren't there. And now you're here, and you're already planning your exit. Min-jae, I love you. The words came out quiet, fierce. I never stopped, not for one single day, and I know I don't deserve you. I know I failed you when you needed me most. I asked for a week when I should have acted immediately. I let my fear of my family dictate our future. His hands clenched on the table. But I'm asking you, begging you, don't shut the door on us. Not yet. Not before I can prove that I've changed, that I'm strong enough now, that I would walk away from everything, the empire, the family name, all of it, before I'd let anyone hurt you or Kai. He reached for her hand carefully. I'm terrified, Roberta. Terrified you'll disappear again and I'll spend the rest of my life searching. Terrified that Kai will grow up thinking I didn't want him. Terrified that I've already lost the only thing that ever mattered to me. His voice dropped. I'm not asking you to love me back. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just asking you not to give up on the possibility of us. Not yet. Just give me a chance to prove I'm not that scared boy anymore. Roberta felt her carefully built walls cracking. This man, powerful, controlled, was laying himself bare in front of her. I'm scared too, she whispered. I know, and you have every right to be. He squeezed her hand gently. But I found you. After 7 years, I found you, and I'm not going anywhere. Let me prove I'm worth the risk, please. She looked at him, at the vulnerability in his eyes, the tension in his shoulders, the way he held her hand like she was precious. I'm not asking to go back. I'm asking if we can start over, slowly, as two people who share a son and maybe eventually something more. Before Roberta could answer, her phone buzzed, a text from Kai, who was supposed to be asleep. Mom, stop overthinking. He's clearly still in love with you and you're still in love with him. The chemistry is obvious. Just kiss him already so I can get some sleep. The emotional tension is keeping me awake. Roberta had shown Min-jae the text. He'd laughed so hard he'd nearly fallen off his chair. Our son is a menace. I know. I love him already. I know. They didn't kiss that night, but they'd talked until 3 a.m., slowly rebuilding the bridge that had burned 7 years ago. The next morning, Kai had woken up, taken one look at his mother's face, and smirked. You talked to him? Yes. And? And we're taking things slowly. He wants to be in your life, if you want that. Kai had considered this while eating his meticulously organized breakfast. I have questions. Of course you do. Does he know how to play chess? I have no idea. Can he code? Kai, those aren't the important questions. They are to me. If he's going to be my father, we need common interests. Kai pulled out his tablet, where he'd apparently created a spreadsheet. I've compiled a list of criteria for acceptable paternal relationships. You made a spreadsheet. Obviously, this is important. He'd shown her. The spreadsheet had categories like intellectual compatibility, emotional availability, willingness to engage in strategic gameplay, and quality of dad jokes. Dad jokes? Roberta had asked. Every father should have acceptable humor. It's tradition. Minjae had arrived for breakfast, taken one look at the spreadsheet, and immediately started answering Kai's questions. Chess? I've been playing since I was 4. I'll teach you openings. Coding? I learned Python at 12. What language do you want to start with? And my dad jokes? He'd grinned. What do you call a fish wearing a crown? A kingfish. Kai had made a note. Acceptable, but we'll need to work on delivery. Fair. They'd spent the morning together, the three of them, and Roberta had watched her son and his father bond over puzzles and business strategies and increasingly terrible puns. At one point, Kai had looked at her and smiled. Really smiled. Not his usual calculating smirk, but a genuine happy smile. And Roberta realized that maybe, just maybe, running into Minjae in Seoul wasn't the disaster she'd feared. Maybe it was exactly what they all needed. 3 days later, as they prepared to fly back to Chicago, Kai made an announcement. I've decided Minjae can visit us in Chicago, twice a month to start. We'll evaluate the arrangement quarterly and adjust as needed. You're giving him visitation rights? Roberta asked. Conditional visitation rights, subject to review. Minjae had looked at Roberta. Is this okay with you? And Roberta, looking at her son's hopeful face and Minjae's gentle smile, had found herself nodding. Twice a month, we'll see how it goes. Kai pulled out his phone. I'll send you my calendar. I have chess club on Mondays and business strategy study group on Thursdays, but I'm free most weekends. You have a business strategy study group? Minjae asked. You're 6. And you were learning the family business at 6. Age is just a number. As they'd boarded the plane, Kai had turned to his mother. You know he's going to propose eventually, right? Kai? I'm just stating statistical probabilities. The way he looks at you, combined with the fact that you share a child and clearly still have feelings for each other, suggests an 87% likelihood of marriage within a year. Where are you getting these numbers? I made them up, but am I wrong? Roberta looked back at the terminal where Minjae stood watching them leave and thought about the ring he'd bought 7 years ago that she never got to see. No, she'd admitted quietly, you're probably not wrong. Kai smiled and opened his business journal to a fresh page. Excellent. I should start planning the wedding. You'll want elegant but not ostentatious. Probably a spring ceremony. I'll make a list of appropriate venues. You're not planning my wedding. Someone has to. You're clearly too emotionally compromised to make rational decisions. And that's how Roberta Timfrey found herself on a plane home with her 6-year-old son, who'd just met his father for the first time and was now planning her future wedding with the efficiency of a Fortune 500 CEO. If she was being honest, she wouldn't have it any other way. The AT first visit happened 2 weeks later. Minjae arrived in Chicago on a Friday afternoon, and Kai had prepared like he was hosting a corporate summit. He created an itinerary, complete with scheduled activities, meal plans, and what he called bonding objectives. Bonding objectives? Roberta stared at the color-coded schedule taped to the refrigerator. Yes, we need structured activities to build our relationship. I've allocated Saturday morning for chess instruction, Saturday afternoon for museum visits, cultural exposure is important, and Sunday for what I'm calling casual family integration. You're 6. This is not a business merger. All relationships are essentially negotiations, Mom. I'm just being systematic about it. When Minjae knocked on their door, Kai answered wearing a charcoal gray suit and holding a clipboard. Welcome. You're 3 minutes early. I appreciate punctuality. He stepped aside. Please come in. I'll give you the tour. Minjae looked at Roberta over Kai's head, amusement dancing in his eyes. She just shrugged helplessly. Their apartment was beautiful. Roberta worked hard to afford it, but it was nothing compared to the Han estate. Still, Kai walked Minjae through every room like he was showing off corporate headquarters. This is the living room. Mom works from here sometimes, so please keep noise levels moderate. This is the kitchen. I've prepared a snack schedule for the weekend, and this is my room. Kai's room was exactly what you'd expect from a 6-year-old CEO. Organized shelves of books arranged by subject, a small desk with a laptop and files, a chessboard set up and ready, and yes, a tiny closet full of suits. You really do wear suits, Min-jae murmured, looking at the miniature professional wardrobe. Presentation matters, you taught me that. I didn't teach you anything, we just met 2 weeks ago. Genetics taught me then? Kai pulled out his chess set. Shall we begin? I've been studying the Sicilian defense. They played chess for 3 hours. Min-jae won the first 2 games, but Kai won the third, and the look of pride on Min-jae's face made Roberta's heart ache. You're good, Min-jae said. I know, you're better though, for now. Kai reset the board. Again? By Sunday evening, Kai completed his bonding objectives and declared the visit moderately successful, with room for improvement. What would make it more successful? Min-jae asked, crouching down to Kai's level. Kai was quiet for a moment, then, you could stay longer, if you wanted. Min-jae's eyes got bright. I'd like that. Next time I'll stay through Monday. We can have breakfast together before you go to school. That would be acceptable. They hugged then, brief and awkward but genuine. And when Min-jae left, Kai stood at the window watching until the car disappeared. You like him, Roberta said softly. He's adequate, Kai replied. Then quieter. He remembered I don't like mushrooms. You told him once on the phone, and he remembered when we ordered pizza. Small details, but for Kai, details were everything. The visits became regular. Every other weekend, Min-jae flew to Chicago. Sometimes he took Kai to science museums or chess tournaments. Sometimes they just stayed in, playing games and talking. And slowly, carefully, Min-jae and Roberta rebuilt what they lost. But here's what Kai noticed that his parents didn't. The way Min-jae's eyes followed Roberta around the apartment. The way Roberta laughed at Min-jae's jokes despite trying not to. The way they both found excuses to be in the same room. After the third visit, Kai made notes in what he called his relationship progress tracker. Yes, he actually created one. Status update. Dad is clearly still in love with Mom. Mom is clearly still in love with Dad. Both are being stupid about it. Estimated timeline to reconciliation, 4 to 6 months if left to their own devices. My intervention, necessary. 3 months in, during one of Kai's scheduled bathroom breaks, which he definitely planned to give them alone time, Min-jae and Roberta were cleaning up after dinner. You're good with him, Roberta said quietly. He makes it easy. He's remarkable. He is. She dried a plate. You know, I told myself for 7 years that we made the right choice running, that Kai was better off without the Han family complications. And now? Now I watch you two play chess, and I wonder what else I kept from him by being scared. Min-jae stopped washing dishes. You kept him safe. You gave him a childhood free from family politics and danger. That wasn't wrong, Roberta. But it wasn't all right either. They stood there, hands in soapy water, not quite touching. I miss you, Min-jae said suddenly. Not just the you from 7 years ago. I miss you now, the brilliant attorney who closes impossible deals, the mother who raised a genius, the woman who's even more beautiful when she's telling me I'm wrong about something. Min-jae, I know you said you want co-parenting. I'm trying to respect that, but I need you to know that I'm here. I'm not going anywhere, and whenever you're ready to stop being scared, I'll be waiting. Roberta's hands trembled in the water. Kai's voice came from the doorway. The tension in this kitchen is statistically off the charts. Either kiss each other or I'm hiring you both therapists. Kai, they both shouted. What? I'm providing observational data. He walked to the fridge. Also, Mom, your cortisol levels are clearly elevated, and Dad's been staring at you for the past 45 seconds. The evidence is overwhelming. You're 6. And very perceptive. He grabbed his juice box. I'll be in my room reading about adult emotional dysfunction. Call me when you've figured this out. After he left, Roberta started laughing. Our son is insane. Our son is not wrong. Roberta looked at Min-jae, really looked at him, at the man who flew across the world every other weekend, who learned how to make Kai's favorite sandwich and read his favorite books so they could discuss them, who looked at her like she was still the only person in the room worth seeing. I'm scared, she whispered. I know. What if it doesn't work? What if it does? What if your family? I run the family now. They'll accept what I tell them to accept. He dried his hands and stepped closer. Roberta, I can't promise everything will be perfect. I can't promise there won't be challenges, but I can promise I will never make you feel like you have to run again. I can promise I will fight for you, for us, every single day. That's a big promise. I've had 7 years to prepare for it. Roberta felt her walls cracking, the ones she built so carefully to protect herself. I can't just jump back in, she said. I'm not asking you to jump. I'm asking you to take one step, then another. We'll figure out the rest as we go. One step. One step. Roberta took a breath, then she stepped forward and kissed him. It was soft, tentative, nothing like their passionate kisses from 7 years ago. It was better. It was real. It was two people who were broken finding their way back to each other. When they pulled apart, Kai's voice came from his bedroom. Finally, thank you, I can sleep peacefully now. They both laughed. He's been planning this, hasn't he? Roberta asked. Absolutely. I found his parent reconciliation strategy notebook last week. He made a strategy notebook? Complete with timelines and intervention tactics. Roberta shook her head, smiling. We're in so much trouble with this kid. The best kind of trouble. From that night, things changed. Not dramatically, Roberta was still cautious, still scared sometimes, but Min-jae was patient. He kept visiting, kept showing up, kept proving he wasn't going anywhere. 4 months after that first kiss, over coffee while Kai was at school, Min-jae brought it up. My family wants to meet him. Roberta's old fears surged. No. Roberta. I said no, Min-jae. Your family is exactly why I ran. My father is dead. I run the empire now. Things are different. Power doesn't change family dynamics. No, but I do. He took her hand. I've spent the last 3 years restructuring everything, making some part of the business legitimate, removing the people who operated in shadows. I did that for you, for Kai. So when I found you, I could offer you a life that wasn't built on fear. That's a nice story, but it's not a story. It's a fact. My family will accept Kai because I'm telling them to, and they'll accept you because the alternative is losing me. His eyes were fierce. I'm not asking them for permission, Roberta. I'm telling them. Kai exists. He's my son. You're the woman I love. They can accept it or they can lose their heir. Roberta stared at him. You'd really do that? Walk away from everything? In a heartbeat. You and Kai are my everything now. The empire is just what I do. She saw the truth in his eyes. He meant it. One visit. She finally agreed. Controlled. At the first sign of trouble, we leave. Deal. She told Kai that evening. We're going to Seoul, to meet your father's family. Kai looked up from his homework. The ones Grandpa said would kill us. Kai, I have excellent hearing. He tilted his head. Are they still dangerous? Your father says he'll protect us. Do you trust him? Yes, Roberta said, and realized she meant it. Then I trust him too. He went back to his homework. I should study Korean etiquette and family hierarchy. First impressions matter. Just be yourself. Myself makes you nervous. Diplomatic Kai is safer. The flight to Seoul was tense. Kai spent it reading about Korean business culture. Roberta spent it trying not to panic. Min-jae met them at the airport with a car that probably cost more than Roberta made in a year. Ready? He asked. No, Roberta admitted. Mom's cortisol levels are elevated, Kai observed. Heart rate approximately 90 beats per minute. Classic anxiety response. You're not helping, Roberta muttered. I'm providing data. The Han estate was exactly as Roberta remembered. Massive, intimidating, dripping with old money and older power. But this time, she walked through the gates holding Kai's hand, with Min-jae at her side. The family gathered in the main hall. Min-jae's mother, elegantly dressed and cold-eyed. His uncle, who ran the family's political connections. His 2 cousins, who looked at Roberta like she was something unfortunate, someone tracked in on their shoe. And there, in the center of it all, stood a small boy in a perfectly tailored suit, looking at them with the calculating gaze of someone 3 times his age. Kai didn't flinch. He walked forward, stopped at the appropriate distance, and bowed with perfect form. Good afternoon, my name is Kai Min-jae Timfrey. I'm honored to meet my father's family. The room went silent. Min-jae's mother stared at Kai, her face cycling through shock, recognition, and something that might have been grief. He looks just like you did at that age. I know, Min-jae said quietly. His uncle stepped forward. This is the child? The illegitimate heir? This is my son, Min-jae corrected, his voice hard. Kai is a Han by blood, which makes him legitimate. I suggest you remember that. His mother ran away. One of the cousins sneered. Disappeared for 7 years. How do we even know he's really yours? Kai cleared his throat. Would you like a DNA test? I can arrange one. I researched reputable laboratories on the flight. We can have results within 72 hours. Everyone turned to stare at him. Did he just, the cousin started, offer to prove his own paternity? Yes. Kai pulled out his tablet. I have the lab information here, unless you'd prefer to simply acknowledge the obvious genetic similarities and move forward like rational adults. Min-jae covered his mouth to hide his smile. His mother walked forward slowly, studying Kai like he was a puzzle. How old are you? 6 years and 4 months. And you really talk like this? Yes, ma'am. I find clear communication prevents misunderstandings. She laughed, actually laughed. He is definitely a Han. Then to Roberta. You raised him alone? Roberta lifted her chin. Yes. And he turned out like this? Brilliant and fearless and completely insufferable? I prefer precocious, Kai interjected. Min-jae's mother smiled, small but genuine. I like him. She looked at Min-jae. He can stay. That wasn't your decision to make, Min-jae said evenly. No, but I'm making it anyway. She turned back to Kai. Your Korean is terrible. We'll fix that. And your understanding of family hierarchy needs work, but you have potential. Thank you. Kai looked at his father uncertainly. That's high. Praise from her, Min-jae whispered. You just won her over. The uncle, however, was less impressed. The boy is fine, but what about her? He gestured at Roberta. She's nobody, no family name, no connections. She can't possibly— She's the woman I love, Min-jae interrupted. The woman I've loved for 7 years, the woman who raised my son to be extraordinary, and the woman I intend to marry. So yes, uncle, she can possibly. The room erupted. Roberta's heart stopped. Min-jae, I know we haven't talked about this, he said, turning to her. I know I'm doing this all wrong, but I'm not hiding anymore. Not from them, not from you. He pulled a box from his pocket, the same box he carried for 7 years. I bought this ring the week you disappeared. I've kept it ever since, hoping I'd find you, hoping I'd get to ask. He dropped to one knee right there in front of his entire family. Roberta Timfrey, you are brilliant and fierce and the best mother Kai could have asked for. You make me want to be better. Will you marry me? Roberta stared at him, tears streaming down her face. You're proposing now? In front of everyone, while your family is arguing about whether I'm good enough? I'm proposing now because I've wasted 7 years, because I'm not wasting another second, because I want everyone in this room to know that you're not just good enough, you're everything. He opened the box. The ring was beautiful, classic, perfect. So yes, I'm proposing now. What do you say? Kai leaned over and whispered, the statistically optimal answer is yes, Mom, just so you know. Kai. What? I'm providing guidance. Roberta looked at Min-jae, really looked at him, at the man who spent 7 years searching, who flew to Chicago every other weekend to build a relationship with his son, who was kneeling in front of his family, publicly declaring his love for a woman they didn't approve of. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. The kiss shut up every single person in that room. When they finally broke apart, Kai started clapping. Excellent decision-making, both of you. I approve of this union. Oh, you approve? Roberta laughed through her tears. Obviously someone has to. You two are clearly too emotionally compromised to evaluate this rationally. Min-jae's mother actually smiled. I'm beginning to understand why you kept him away from us. He would have taken over the family by now. He's 6, Roberta protested. Age is irrelevant to ambition, the older woman replied. Welcome to the family, Ms. Timfrey. Try to keep up. The rest of the visit was a whirlwind. Min-jae's family ranged from cautiously accepting to genuinely welcoming. His mother took a particular interest in Kai, teaching him Korean phrases and telling him stories about Min-jae's childhood that made Kai laugh. You really negotiated your own allowance at 5? Kai asked Min-jae. Successfully, too. I knew we were related. By the time they left, Seoul, Kai acquired a Korean grandmother who video called him twice a week, a second cousin who promised to teach him taekwondo, and an uncle who grudgingly admitted that the boy has potential in the family business. On the plane home, wearing his new handbag that Min-jae's mother insisted on buying him, Kai pulled out a new notebook, this one labeled Wedding Planning in neat handwriting. I've already researched venues, something elegant but not ostentatious, approximately 200 guests, mix of Korean and American traditions to honor both cultures. 200 guests? Roberta squeaked. The Han family alone is 70 people. Your side will be smaller, but we need to account for business associates, friends, and… Kai, sweetheart, we just got engaged yesterday. Which is why we need to start planning immediately. Spring weddings book fast. He turned to Min-jae. You'll handle the Korean guest list. Mom will handle the American side. I'll coordinate overall logistics and manage the timeline. You're 6, Roberta repeated weakly, and you're clearly overwhelmed by the prospect of planning a wedding while managing your caseload. I'm helping. Min-jae took Roberta's hand. Let him help. He's happy. Look at him. Roberta looked. Kai was scribbling notes, cross-referencing something on his tablet, completely absorbed in the project, and he was smiling. Not his usual calculating smirk, but a genuine, excited smile. Fine, she sighed, but I get final say on the dress. Obviously, bridal fashion is your domain. I'll focus on logistics and vendor management. 6 months later, the wedding took place at an elegant venue overlooking the Han River in Seoul. The morning of the wedding, Roberta was getting ready when Kai knocked on the door. He was wearing a miniature tuxedo that matched Min-jae's, looking heartbreakingly grown up. Mom, can we talk? She shooed everyone else out and sat down, careful not to wrinkle her dress. Kai was quiet for a moment, then, thank you. For what, baby? For keeping me safe, for working so hard, for being brave enough to run when you had to, and brave enough to stay when it mattered. His eyes were bright with tears. You gave up a lot for me. Oh, sweetheart, Roberta pulled him close. You were never something I gave up things for. You were the reason I fought for everything. I know, but still, thank you. He pulled back, wiping his eyes. Also, I have something for you. He handed her a small box. Inside was a bracelet with 3 charms, a tiny gavel for her career, a chess piece for Kai, and a heart engraved with the date she and Min-jae met. Kai, this is beautiful. Dad helped me pick it out. He wanted you to know that every part of your life matters, not just the parts that include him. Roberta absolutely lost it then, tears ruining her makeup while her mother rushed to fix it. The ceremony was perfect, a blend of Korean and American traditions exactly like Kai planned. Roberta walked down the aisle to traditional music, her father on one side and Kai on the other. I'm giving you away, her father whispered. I'm making sure she gets there, Kai added. Quality control. At the altar, Min-jae took Roberta's hands and looked at her like she was his entire world. I've loved you since I was 24 years old, he said during his vows. I loved you when we were sneaking around the estate. I loved you when you disappeared. I loved you every day for 7 years when I didn't know where you were. And I'll love you every day for the rest of my life. Roberta barely got through her own vows without sobbing. When they kissed, Kai started the applause, and the entire room joined in. Later, during the father-son dance that Kai insisted on adding to the schedule, Min-jae crouched down to Kai's level. Thank you for giving me a chance, for letting me be your father. Thank you for not giving up on us, for finding us, for loving Mom even, when she was being stubborn. She prefers cautious. She was stubborn. Kai grinned. But so was I. I researched you, you know, before we went to Seoul, made sure you weren't secretly terrible. And? You passed the background check, barely. Min-jae laughed and pulled his son close. I love you, Kai. I know, I love you too, obviously. As the night wound down, Roberta found Kai sitting at a table, his tie loosened, his jacket draped over a chair, looking satisfied. Good wedding? She asked. Excellent wedding. Everything went according to plan. The cake was structurally sound, and most importantly, you two are happy. We are. Roberta sat beside him. You did good, baby. I know. He leaned against her. Can I tell you something? Always. I used to wonder why I didn't have a dad like other kids, but now I think maybe I got something better. I got a mom who was strong enough for both parents, and then I got a dad who fought to find us. That's better than just having two parents from the start. Roberta held her son close, watching her new husband dance with his mother across the room, and thought about the scared 20-year-old girl who ran away 7 years ago. She did the right thing, kept Kai safe, built a life, and somehow, impossibly, she got her happy ending anyway. "Mom?" Kai asked sleepily. "Yeah, baby? When are we moving to Seoul?" Roberta blinked. "What?" "We're moving to Seoul, right? Dad runs an empire here. He can't exactly relocate to Chicago. The logistics would be inefficient." From across the room, Min-jae caught her eye. He walked over, clearly having heard Kai's question. "I was going to bring that up after the honeymoon," Min-jae said carefully. "But Kai's right. I can't run the family business from Chicago, and I don't want to keep flying back and forth, missing half of Kai's life." He took Roberta's hand. "But it's your choice. I know you have your career, your life there." "Seoul has corporate law." "Firms," Kai interrupted. "Good ones. Mom's brilliant. They'll fight over her. Plus, I researched international schools here. The academic programs are superior, and I'd finally get to improve my Korean." "You've researched schools?" Roberta stared at her son. "Obviously, I've been planning this since the engagement." He pulled out his tablet. "I have 3 school options, all with gifted programs. I've also compiled a list of neighborhoods with good commute times and—" "Kai," Min-jae said gently, "this is your mom's decision." Kai looked at Roberta with those 2 old eyes. "Do you want to stay in Chicago because it's home, or because you're scared of being here?" Another impossible question from her impossible son. Roberta looked around the reception, at Min-jae's mother, who'd spent the evening teaching Kai Korean phrases, at his cousins, who'd warmed up to her after seeing how Min-jae looked at her, at the life that was being offered to her, not demanded but offered. "I need to take the Korean bar exam," she said slowly. "You'd pass it in 6 months," Min-jae said. "And until then, international firms here would hire you in a heartbeat, or you could consult independently." "And Kai's education?" "I vetted the schools," Kai said. "Seoul Foreign School has an excellent program. I've already scheduled tours for next month." "You scheduled tours?" "I'm thorough, Mom, you know this." Roberta looked at Min-jae. "You really want us here? Permanently?" "I want to wake up with my family every morning, not just on weekends or holidays." His eyes were soft. "I want Kai to grow up knowing both sides of his heritage. I want you to not have to choose between your career and us. Come home with me, both of you." "Home," Roberta repeated. "Home," Min-jae confirmed. Kai stood up, straightening his tie despite it being nearly midnight. "I'll start coordinating the move. We'll need to list the Chicago apartment, arrange international shipping for our belongings, transfer my school records." "Kai," Roberta laughed, "we just decided this 30 seconds ago. Which means we're already behind schedule. The school year starts in 3 months. We need to be settled before then." "He's not wrong," Min-jae said, fighting a smile. "He's 6. And very efficient." 3 months later, Roberta stood in their new home in Seoul. Not the Han estate, but a beautiful house in a quiet neighborhood that Kai had selected based on optimal living conditions and commute efficiency. Kai was in his new room, already organized, his suits hanging in the closet, his books arranged by subject. He walked out wearing his Seoul Foreign School uniform, looking far too professional for a first grader. "Ready for your first day?" Roberta asked. "I've prepared a brief introduction, researched the curriculum, and packed appropriate supplies." He adjusted his backpack. "I'm ready." "Of course you are." Min-jae came downstairs adjusting his tie. "Oh, drop him off on my way to the office." "You don't have to." "I want to. Besides, someone needs to make sure he doesn't negotiate with the principal on his first day." "That was one time," Kai protested, "and the curriculum did need updating." As they headed out the door, Kai turned back. "Mom, you have that meeting with Kim and Associates at 10. Don't forget your briefcase. It's by the door." "How do you know about my meeting?" "I checked your calendar. Also, you'll want to take the blue folder, not the red one. The blue has the updated contract revisions." "Kai, that's actually really helpful, thank you." "Someone has to manage this family." After they left, Roberta stood in the quiet house and thought about how far they'd come, from that terrified 20-year-old running away in the night to this, a home in Seoul, a husband who loved her, a son who wore suits and managed everyone's schedules and somehow made everything better. Her phone buzzed, a text from Kai sent from the car. "Mom, I forgot to mention, grandmother is coming for dinner tonight. She called yesterday, I told her 6 p.m. Also, she's bringing kimchi. I know you don't love kimchi, but pretend you do. Family politics are important. Love you." Roberta laughed until she cried, because 7 years ago she ran from this city terrified and alone. Now she was back, with a husband who never stopped searching, a son who wore suits and planned international moves and somehow knew everything before it happened. And somehow, impossibly, she got her happy ending, even if it came with a 6-year-old who scheduled her meetings and managed her mother-in-law visits. That evening, sitting around the dinner table with Min-jae, Kai, and Min-jae's mother, Roberta watched her son explain his optimization strategy for family dinners, while his grandmother listened with barely concealed amusement. "And if we coordinate meal prep in advance," Kai was saying, "we can reduce cook time by 30% and maximize family interaction." "He's trying to optimize family dinner," Min-jae whispered to Roberta. "I heard that, Dad, and yes, efficiency matters even in family settings." Min-jae's mother laughed. "He's exactly like you were at that age, insufferable and brilliant." "I prefer precocious," Kai and Min-jae said in unison. Roberta pulled out her phone and took a picture. This moment, this beautiful, chaotic, perfect moment. Because sometimes the best stories are the ones where you run away scared and come back strong, where love waits 7 years, where a 6-year-old in a suit brings a family together and somehow manages everyone's lives better than they manage their own. And sometimes, just sometimes, happy endings are real. Even if they come with a tiny CEO who schedules your mother-in-law's visits and optimizes your family dinners. That's the story of how a forbidden romance, a midnight escape, and one brilliant kid in a 3-piece suit brought a family home. If you loved watching Kai be the most hilarious 6-year-old to ever exist, smash that like button and drop your favorite Kai moment in the comments. Subscribe for more stories about second chances, cross-cultural romance, and kids who are way smarter than their parents. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.